I think we're going to accomplish mass remigration. I think we are going to win. And one of the main reasons is the conditions that I think will prevail within foreign invader enclaves once the state system, the English state, falls over. I think conditions within invader enclaves will plummet. Now, to illustrate this, I want to refer to a very nice video that was done by Bo Dade and Carl Benjamin, where they were kind enough to mention me. I'm always very flattered when someone does that. Let me just bring it up and show it to you. That's it, Britain's Nightmare Future. It's about 28 minutes long. It's very good, it's worth a watch. It's really dealing with how bad things are going to be if mass immigration continues, if we lose more and more control of our cities. But I won't play part of it here. There's just a small segment where they refer to me. And what Bo Dade says, I like Bo, he's a nice guy, a smart guy too. What he says is that what they say together is that they refer to something that I've said about what will happen to invader areas once the system falls over. And so what he says is, when our cities are completely lost, they become like Birmingham. Yes, they become like a Bangladeshi city. Nothing works and it's a giant trash pile, rubbish everywhere, and that will make them even more resentful. Now they're saying that that's what I'm saying. That isn't what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that these enclaves, they won't become like Birmingham or Bangladesh. They will become cold, dark, hungry, warring, diseased dirt holes, absolute pest holes, and the conditions in them will resemble something hellish, and really far worse than anything in Bangladesh or Birmingham. Really, they will be at the distillation of multiculturalism, the horrific multiculturalism serum is what they will look like. I think it is right to say that will be, could be quite hellish. Now, just to recap, what I want to do is to refer to what I've said is likely to happen, what I've referred to as the collapse solution. So you can find it here. I've put it out on Twitter, and I call it the collapse solution. Firstly, the economy breaks down, then the welfare state breaks down, and then the state authority breaks down. Then crime and disorder explode because there's no one to police crime, the state's fallen over, and then we will seek protection of the law via self-governing legal charters or codes that people join voluntarily, like joining a club, where each member agrees he can be punished if he doesn't treat other members in accordance or according to the rules, i.e. the law. So I think people would rather have that than submit to the authority of some drug lord or a biker gang or some rogue colonel, some rogue major who's got a few soldiers following him and who has access to a weapons dump. I think the English, we prefer transparent, morally derived law that we can understand and give our consent to. So that's what I'm talking about. A legal system that you vote for with your feet, not at the ballot, because if the state's fallen over, there's nothing to vote for. And then number 6, that I think would involve complete freedom of non-association, i.e. we can associate with whoever we want, and crucially, we can decide not to associate with whoever we want. So we can say, we don't want this or that foreign population to be a part of our society. We don't want them to be able to join our legal system. We want them kept out, effectively banished. We don't want to be part of them. They've declared independence, they can have it. I think, and so what is necessary, the two conditions that I think will prevail are complete freedom of non-association plus being forced to rely upon ourselves for our neighbours' safety and security. And in those circumstances, no one's going to trust, no English person is going to trust Muslims or Africans to protect their safety and security simply because of their hostility and crime rates. People will look to other people who look, speak, act and think like them, because that's who you trust, because that's who you can predict, that's who you feel safe with and familiar with. And so as a result of that, number 7, I think we will all separate out along hard, formal ethnic lines, because that's who we will trust with our safety and security. Then 8, the foreign enclaves, deprived of any contact with English population, will have no source of income because they have no contact, no commercial contact with the wealthier, more productive English population, no access to welfare, no way to maintain essential amenities like gas, electricity, water or drainage, and crucially actually no way to maintain order, no civil infrastructure. There is nothing. It's all been provided for them by the British state, and they're not bringing it with them. They have no, and you can you can see this for yourself by visiting. If you visit any foreigner enclave at the moment, say in Birmingham, in Luton, in Leicester, in Leeds or Greater Manchester, you will ask yourself, how does this place support itself if the English state goes down? I don't think there's a way for them to do so. There was a Paul Joseph Watson video recently where they're going around, he's quoting some other video that goes around a town, a northern town, looking at the conditions there, which is dominated by Muslims, looking at how bad it is, where it's all chicken shops. There's no other wealth production mechanism there. And if you just look at that video, I think I'll leave the link underneath, but if you look at that video and ask yourself as you're watching it, how does this area support itself once it's deprived of contact with the ethnic English population? I think what that means is then those conditions, and number 9, those conditions in those foreigner areas will plummet fast, and as I've put here, become hellish within weeks. And then those people, they will be amenable to leaving voluntarily, perhaps given a free airline ticket. So that I would say that's 9 steps for the collapse solution. You can make it shorter, more punchy if you like, but that's what I think is likely to happen. And I think one of the keys to this is the terrible conditions that I think will prevail within those invader enclaves. And that's what I want to look at here. That's what I want to try and show you in picture form how bad, or the potential for conditions in those areas to get very bad. And I should say, none of this is cruelty. This is not the Warsaw Ghetto. It's not genocide. It is simply us standing back and saying to foreigners in their enclaves who've declared independence, declared UDI, saying, right, you wanted to be independent, you've got it now. You stew in your own juice. And by the way, the airport's down that road. You are free to leave if you don't like it. But we are not going to mollycoddle you anymore. You sit and suffer in the conditions you've made for yourselves. And that there is no cruelty there. Allowing people to tough love, allowing people to stew in their own juice, forcing them to take their own bitter medicine, that is, I think that is a reasonable, realistic way to achieve our aim. And it achieves it without conflict, without war. You are getting the enemy to fight the war for you, so you don't have to resort to coercion and cruelty. And those foreign areas, I think that they are made for very, very bitter medicine. And that's what I want to show you here. What I want to do is to show you demographic maps. I've got 3 towns. You can look at a whole bunch of them. The ones I've got are Greater Manchester, Leeds and Sheffield. I'll probably look at Greater Manchester the most, but you could also look at Nottingham, Birmingham, Luton and Leicester. These are the ones I found on Wikipedia, and I'll bring them up. I'll bring up this Greater Manchester one. Oops, just so you can see. So there, if you see that, hold on. Let me do this. Okay. This is Wikipedia, demographics of Greater Manchester. Now, if I go down here, then there's the numbers. But what I want to look at is the picture form, if you can see that. What they've done is they've taken distribution of ethnic groups in Greater Manchester according to the 2021 census, this one. Most of these are in the 2011 census, but this is 2021 for Greater Manchester. This has been updated. So if I enlarge the picture, that's the white population, so white down there. That's so around the edges, away from the centre. That's what's happening. White flight, all those areas, those white coloured areas, that's where white people have decided to leave because there are a lot of foreigners there. And that's white flight. That should tell you all you need to know about whether we want to mix with these people. If we have freedom from the state, we're just not going to mix with these people. We'll set up hard lines, hard fences, hard division, maybe policed by sniper fire in order to keep them out of our areas, as we have every right to do. All right, so that's white English, white British. Again, the darker it is, the more British it is. You can see it's the outlying areas. White Irish, not quite so far outlying. And then white other, that's probably Albanian and Gypsy, I reckon. Those are not white people, but anyway, that's the census for you. And then this is Asian. Asian basically means Hindu, Sikh or Muslim. And Chinese, I think, are included, might be included within that. But what I want to show you is Asian Indian, if you can see that. And then I'm going to toggle between that and this one, Asian Pakistani. Now, what I want to show you is that there is overlap there, particularly in that area northwest and that southwest area. There is, oops, I'm getting confused here. Hold on. If I go back again, Asian Pakistani and Asian Indian, there is overlap. And then Asian Bangladeshi, that overlaps with the Pakistani area. You see that dark Pakistani bit there. Well, that's where the Bengalis overlap with them. And then you have Asian Chinese. I feel sorry for them. I think they'll be perceived as physically weaker and richer. They're probably going to get punished really hard by all the other groups. They'll probably be just caught in the middle. Very unpleasant for them. And then that's black. That's black African. That would probably include Somalis, I reckon. And maybe other Sudanese who should come under the Islamic label. I think they should be lumped alongside the Asians. And then black Caribbean. See how that overlaps around that area there? And then other Arab. Again, overlap between other Arab and black Caribbean. And all of those areas, so Asian Chinese, Asian Bangladeshi, Asian Pakistani, and Asian Indian, there is overlap between that and the black areas. It's difficult. I don't know if you can see this properly. Let me go to Asian Chinese. Hold on. That's Asian Pakistani. If I zoom in, I'll try and zoom. I've zoomed in on that image a bit more. That's that same image. That's the Asian Pakistani enclaves there. And what I want to show you is what I've showed you before is how the different ethnicities, very, very hostile ethnicities, Indians, Pakistanis, Bengalis, they have all been at war, which has involved wars that have involved really eye-watering levels of massacre. I think genocide in the very early 1970s, the Pakistanis inflicted on the Bengalis, I think it was about 1.3 or 1.5 million. Then you have the partition of India and Pakistan in 48 and the massacres that went on there and the population exchange that went on there. Here they're sitting on top of each other. And I just want to show you, if you can see that's slightly enlarged. I'll try and enlarge it a little bit more. So if you look at that sort of black blob in the middle there, what I want to show you is how erratic and higgledy-piggledy and chaotic those jagged the borders are. So if you look at that black area, look at all those sticky out bits, and even the light grey bits are very sticky out. That's not a natural historic border. That's not a border that's been formed between states that want a defensive divide between them. So that's not like the border between France and Germany, or between Italy and Austria, or maybe between Belgium and France, or Belgium and Germany. That's not, or the Low Countries in Germany. That is, those borders are defensible. They tend to be smooth, contiguous, not enclosing the country with the least length of border is what they're doing. The opposite is happening here. What I think has happened here is, and this is unprecedented in history, it's so irresponsible. The responsibility on the people who've done this is appalling. I mean, they deserve to be held to the most costly account for this, because what we've done over the last 50 years, I don't think there's anything like this has even happened within North America. We've invited massive amounts of migrants from cultures that hate each other, and we have invited them to to settle in conditions of mollycoddled affluence and welfare, also of extreme stability and peace and order, which is native to us but not to them. And so the way they haven't really had to form settlements that they need to defend. So the Indians, the Bengalis and the Pakistanis and the Africans, they haven't had to form separate enclaves with defensible borders against each other. They've just created sort of higgledy-piggledy settlements, almost like vines, just sort of growing and spreading their tentacles, and not really metastasizing like cancer, just more chaotic than that. And what that means is, if the protecting system, the order that the British state imposes, is lifted, that kind of overlapping of very chaotic, jagged enclaves, that invites conflict. Because I mean, if you just take, say, that little black bit there, if you can see, I don't know if you can see it, one of those sticky out bits. Supposing that's a sticky out bit that sticks into an Indian enclave, the Indians might say, well, that's easy to conquer that bit. That might be 10 streets. We want those 10 streets because 10 streets full of houses for our people. We can fill it up, have more room. Those houses are worth money. Let's go and conquer it. Whereas the Pakistanis might say, we're not letting the Indians take over our streets. We're going to defend every last house. And by the way, that's sticking out in their area. That's a bridgehead into their area because we want to take more. And so those borders, I think, can only be rationalised and smoothed out via conflict, via war between those little enclaves. And those enclaves, again, let me go back, just look at that Pakistani. I mean, it's just peppered all over the place. There's nothing rational about this. No forethought has gone into this. They're just settling out almost anywhere, like amongst themselves, but quite chaotically. That will invite conflict. And so I think you'll immediately get conflict before you can get any sense of coexistence between them. If you immediately get conflict, that sets up a dynamic for further conflict, because you create the infrastructure, you arm your own population, you get sources of funding to fund your own fighters to fight against a neighbouring enclave. So I think what you're likely to get is almost constant rumbling war, and I would have thought not a little bit of massacre. Supposing the Pakistanis here say to the Indians here, or say the Pakistanis in the middle say to the Indians here, we will take out those Pakistanis here, but you've got to give us that area right in the centre. Maybe the Indians say no, we're not going to do it, or we think it's worth more money to live in the centre. Then you're liable to get, that is probably going to get settled out through violence. And the Pakistani Indians might say, right, we'll see about that. We'll see who controls what area. So I don't see any, and the form of war, I think, is likely to be very vicious. Probably Muslims reverting to that old-timey, mutilating, murdering, energetic form of pure reformed Islam, rather than the lazy, slovenly form of Islam that tends to prevail in more peaceable conditions, where Muslims say, I know I'm supposed to chop off the infidels' arms and legs, but I can't be bothered. I'm just living a peaceful life. Why? I'm just going to ignore that bit. But in conditions of hostility, then, particularly if there's ethnic rivalry, Muslims tend to revert to the overarching terror of pure, violent Islam, what I'll call energetic Islam, in order to bridge those ethnic divides to say, right, we can all sign up to the old-timey Islam and band together, subdued by the terror that it imposes. And then on the other side, I think you'll get African gangs acting like African warlords. You know how they are, just tribal charges, waving machetes, hand chopping, head chopping anyone they can, which is a lot of child soldiers. And so Nigerians or Sudanese populations or Somalians doing the same thing. And so I think that it could be very, very nasty, very vicious, rumbling conflict where you get the upper hand in one area and then people who look like you get massacred in another area. Not pleasant at all. So that's what I think that invites. Now, that's Greater Manchester. I'd like to look at this one. This is Leeds. So if I go, the demographics of Leeds. I'll go through this reasonably quickly now because I think I've established the point. But you can see here that again that's white people, white British, white Irish, white other. It's probably not white at all. And then Asian Indian. Again, look at this. Look how they overlap. Asian Indian, Asian Pakistani. So if you see that, there's quite a lot of overlapping, especially around near the centre of Leeds. And then Asian Bengali, again overlapping there. None of these groups get on with each other at all. There's like very quite savage rivalry even within their own groups. And rivalry means the will to power. And then Asian Chinese, and then black. You see how that overlaps with Asian Pakistani. So if I quickly then go to black, and there's a lot of overlapping there. So that's black people living on top of Pakistanis. How's that going to work out once the English state has withdrawn and they're battling for dominance? And that's black African, that's black Caribbean, other Arab. I mean, that's not going to be fun at all, right? And that little central bit there, Pakistanis, Indians, Bengalis, Africans, all piled on top of each other. That is not going to be nice. A conflict will be the order of the day. I don't need to. I don't need to look at. Well, that is the Asian Indian part of Leeds. That's blown up a bit. Again, just to show you how higgledy-piggledy and erratic and jagged the borders are. You can't really talk about any sort of rational contiguous borders there. It's just a sprinkling of it's like someone's dropped shards of glass on the tablecloth. There isn't really a defensible line, and that encourages conflict. And similarly here, if I close that is demographics of Sheffield, and if I go down to here, that's again white British, white Irish, white other, and Asian Indian. Asian Indian, Asian Pakistani, they don't overlap so much in that one. They overlap around the centre, around there, as always seems to be the case. I think town centres are going to become really unpleasant if the British, or in towns like these, if the British state falls over. Then Asian Bengali, but that overlaps very much with Asian Pakistani. And they don't like each other. I would say they kind of hate each other really, historically. There is certainly historic hatred, which has been, all of these hatreds have been sort of put under the ice of British welfare and security, British provision. It has enabled people to sort of forget about that and to say, well, we might as well accept the authority of the British state, don't fight the British state because it's a lot nicer than having to fight each other in poverty. I think those conflicts will come out from under the ice if the British state falls over, a bit like they did within the former Yugoslavia. And that's Asian Bangladeshi, Asian Chinese. Then black African, black Caribbean. See how that overlaps with the Pakistani area? So Pakistan, and if I go back to again, they overlap, and that invites conflict. Now the thing I should say about that is that one, the Sheffield one and the Leeds one, they're not based on the 2021 census, they're based on the 2011 census. So those maps say Asian Pakistani. That's probably the 2011 census is a decade and a half ago. I would say that means that if the Muslim population doubles about every 12 years in this country, I would say that over a decade and a half, and also they tend to cluster disproportionately in towns like this, probably those ethnic areas will be twice as vivid, twice as large, twice as intense. And so again, that bodes more conflict. Now, to illustrate the kind of conflict I mean, imagine you are Ahmed, the head honcho, the lemming in charge of the North Mir Puri little enclave within Leeds, let's say, and you control, say, 20 streets, or in Greater Manchester, 20, 30 streets. And you hate Ahmed, the lemming in charge of I think you're the North Mir Puri leader. I can't remember which I said, but you're Ahmed, the North Mir Puri leader. And there are 20 or 30 streets next to your 20 or 30 streets, and that's led by Ahmed, the lemming in charge of the South Mir Puri population. And you hate him. You want to be leader of all Mir Puris. So you might go and have him killed, and then kill his sons, and maybe set fire to the mosque, or just take over the mosque and stick a couple of your gunmen outside it, and to say, we now control this mosque. We've got rid of your lemming in charge. I'm the lemming in charge now. I want to control you. Subject yourself to me. Let's all unite as Mir Puris under that old-timey Islam, which I am now going to impose. I'm going to impose it in your mosque, whether you like it or not. You have no choice. And supposing you win this, and suppose you are a skilled lemming in charge. And then you might say, well, there's another 50 streets near, or another 30 streets, and that consists of Pakistanis from the rest of Sindh province. I'd like to be the lemming in charge of all the Sindh Pakistanis of this area. So you approach the Sindh enclave, and you give a forewarning to the lemming in charge of the Sindh area, and you say, look what I did to the South Mir Puri leader, I'll do the same to you. Take your family, get out, give me the keys to the mosque, I'm going to rule here. And maybe he'll get out, and you might string up a few of his deputies, a few of his administrators outside the door of the mosque, just to say, I rule here. That's the way you might take it over. And then you might say, well, actually, I'd quite like to be ruler of all the Pakistanis, so the Pakistanis from Lahore, Quetta and Karachi. And let's say the Karachi area, which comprises another, say, 40 streets, I don't know. So they might say, actually, we don't like you, Mir Puris, you're from up north. We've never seen an Afghan in our lives. We're traders, we live by the sea, by the port, and we think of you as unsophisticated. We don't want to succumb to your authority. And so you then declare war on the Karachi area, and you take it, you conquer it. You have a little bit of a battle, a bit of head chopping, hand chopping, and you bomb the mosque, take it over, and then you've got that area. Then you might say, actually, I think I'd rather be in control of I'd like the Bengalis now. They hate me, but we got them in 1970 or 71, and we showed them who was boss then. Let's go and do it again. And you might go to them with terror, and you might eventually overtake them. And then you might say, right, I'm leader of all the Muslims. And even you, Bengalis, you can have your local variation within your mosque, as long as you don't do it on the streets, as long as you don't make it public. But you will be ruled by me, and I will be applying the overarching Islamic terror. And that at least imposes some order. And then after that you might think, actually, those Indians, I reckon, I've been so violent and so successful, I'd like to take over. I am now the big lemming in charge. Let's go on the jihad. Let's take over the Indian area. Let's take what they've got. They were owning more than us before the English state fell over. Let's go and get them, get what they've got, and just take it, and perhaps have them and subdue them. And let's suppose you succeed in that. The next stop might be to get the Africans, and you go after them, and then you get the old-timey Islam versus African warfare, African tribal warfare, machete warfare. That is not likely to be a very nice conflict at all. And at the end of it, what you might get is a very chaotic, and probably what you would say to the Indian areas once you've subdued it and the African areas is, okay, you are now subdued, I'll let you run your own affairs, you can deal with your own inner squabbles, you can shoot and kill each other for authority within your own territory, under my authority, I rule here. And you might say to the Africans, it's not my business to interfere with what happens between you different African tribes where you're hand chopping. I don't need to know what's going on, so long as you submit to me whenever I give you an order, as long as you pass half your wealth to me, that kind of thing. So what you'll probably get is basically a permanent state of rumbling, violent, very vicious, violent conflict, I think. I think that's what's, the potential is there. I'm not saying Ahmed, the South or North Mirpuri lemming in charge, is going to do this. But I think there is the potential for this. That will to power will exist between the different groups which detest each other at really a very minute level. Just different tribes, different villages having multiple feuds and vendettas against each other. Imagine that played out across a whole city against sort of all the 57 varieties of the world. It is not going to be nice. Okay, so enough of Ahmed, the lemming in charge. What does this mean? Well, firstly, it means that I'd like to correct Bo Dade and Carl Benjamin. I'm not trying to paint a picture of conditions where English towns become like Bangladeshi cities or where every city becomes like Birmingham. It is going to be far worse than that. I think it will become as I say, the distillation of multicultural hell. Really just eye-watering. Something that we want nothing to do with. But the opportunity there is for us to repatriate, to remigrate those people out of our country without us having to declare war on themselves, because the conditions within their own areas, I think, will become appalling. As I say, dark, cold, hungry, violent, denied English welfare, denied the opportunity for commerce with the productive English, denied any infrastructure, any means of infrastructure, the means of wealth creation, no utilities like phone or broadband, no emergency services, maybe no water supply. What if we say disease has broken out in your area and there is typhus or polio in the sewage that the African or Muslim area where you live, which is not taking your sewage anymore, and the sewage piles up in the Muslim area. What happens then? The spread of disease is very unpleasant. So, and crucially, there is no way for these people to create order other than by the means of order that they're used to, which in Muslim countries will tend to be violent, energetic Islam. Within African areas, I think that's probably African tribal conflict, and that means the conditions, I think, are likely to get so bad that the people living in there they'll be much worse than they are in Bangladesh, much worse than they are in Africa, much worse than they are in pretty well anywhere. And so those people will then be prepared to take a free airplane ticket home to their land of ancestral origin. And that means we've achieved remigration without having to go to war. This is what needs to be thought through. I think that's the first thing it means. It provides those terrible conditions, provide an opportunity for us to remigrate peacefully without us having to dirty our hands with civil war. People go on about civil war quite a lot. There's a fellow, Professor David Betts, you might have seen an interview with him with, I think it's Louise Perry and the New Culture Forum, Peter Whittle, and also with David Clues, really sort of took him to task, which was nice to see, a change, because everyone's crawling to him. I think a lot of people are quite excited by the idea of civil war. I am not. I do not want to see that. I think any responsible person should be thinking through a way to achieve our aim without resorting to civil war. I think David Betts, I think he's wrong. I don't think it will be civil war. I think it will be ethnic segregation, hard ethnic separation, and then the plummeting of conditions within the foreigner enclaves, the invader enclaves. And in those circumstances, I think if we separate out, we, the English, will separate out hard. We will see how bad things get in those invader areas, and we will really start to police the border and say we want nothing to do with any of you. And the more we do that, the worse the conditions will get in those invader areas, because the more cut off from us they will be. So you can see a downward spiral happening. They're completely cut off from welfare, cut off from commerce, cut off from any way to provide the means for survival. And that means all we will need to do is to stand back and let them stew in their own juice. It's possible we might have to prevent aid entering, but I don't have to go that far, because I think pretty well America, the rest of Europe, a lot of other countries that might want to interfere, I think they will have problems of their own. So we have the chance to avoid conflict and to do it reasonably peaceably. And that matters, because although we need to win, I think future generations will judge us on whether we won fair. It's important to win fair, and I think we have the opportunity to be better, to behave better than they do. We should aspire not to descend to the levels that other nations like Pakistan, like Somalia, like Nigeria, like Bangladesh, we should not resort to levels that they're prepared to resort to. I think we have the opportunity to do better, and I think we should try to do it. We should aim to do that. Finally, I think that what this tends to point to is that there is some room for compassion for our enemies. That's not what you want to hear. I think that is not a sign of weakness. That is a sign of mental strength. It is the cruelty is unnecessary, and it will fail. I think the cruelty, if we decide to do it through, it's not necessary for those foreigners to suffer. It's necessary for them to leave. And the more we preoccupy ourselves with inflicting suffering on them, then I think the more likely we are to lose. I think it is much more important and if they're fighting the battle for us by imposing suffering on themselves, I think that enables us, we don't have to impose cruelty on them. Now, as I say, there are a lot of people who quite like the idea of resorting to civil conflict. I've noticed this when I've done mosque busting a decade ago, more than a decade ago. I used to notice people who wouldn't do anything. If I pushed them, they would eventually say, we're going to sort this out our own way one day. And what they meant is through violence. And if you're one of those people, then what I would say to you is, don't be like Israel. Watch Israel. I think Israel wants to remove a population it doesn't like, i.e. something like between 2.1, 2.3 million Gazans. I think it just wants them gone. I can understand that. I don't think we should intervene. I think whichever side we help, both sides will punish us. There's nothing we can do that will help the situation at all. We should just stand back. It's a really brutal conflict between two very brutal groups of people, and I think their stupid brutality guarantees their failure. I'm entitled to be as rude as I like about Israel because I am British, and we, the British, made Israel, and we made the Israeli state. The Israeli state was not made by Israelis. It was not made by Jews from around the world. It was made by us. The nation part of that nation state, that was Jews coming from around the world who we protected, particularly between the years 1918 to 1939. Without our towering moral and military authority, there's no way that the Jews would have been able to establish even a toehold within that territory before they were massacred by the Arabs, which the Arabs were explicit about wanting to do. And we have had nothing but contempt, bombs, massacre and mutilation and hostility from Israel. As a result, they have contempt for us as a result of us giving them their nation state. So I can be as rude as I like about Israel. What I observe, I think they're showing it. They are a brutal bunch of people, and this is going, I think, to cause them to fail. I can understand why they want to remove the Gazans, but I think it will cause them to fail. I think they are hoping that by using military coercion and by forced population moval within the territory, they will eventually motivate population removal, so force them all into Rafah in the south, and then eventually the conditions will get so bad they will beg to go, and then our will break. Maybe Egypt or Germany or France or us will say, let us take all those poor Palestinians away. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's more likely that Israeli opinion will break. They'll say, what are we doing? And because I don't think they are as cruel as the Arabs, the Israelis, I'll give them that. And I think, and as a result of that, I think this method of population removal through military coercion and brutality will fail. So what I would say is watch Israel, watch what Israel is doing, and learn. Israel is giving us an object lesson in how not to do it. Don't be like Israel. You are better than that. You can do better than that. And in particular, that means think through ways to accomplish remigration, the removal of tens of millions of people without cruelty, without war, without civil war. And I hope, what I've tried to do here is to show how bad those conditions are likely to get in those foreigner enclaves. How they will, if you want them to suffer, well, they're going to inflict more than enough suffering on themselves. So you can drop that, it is possible to drop that hatred and hostility, because we can achieve the aim without it. That's what I hope I've said here. And I hope I've been clear about that. Thank you.